Educational experts say the current system in which students are made to concentrate more on theory to the neglect of practical studies has proved unfavorable to Ghana's socio-economic needs. Speaking to Joy News, educationist Anis Hafa says there is the urgent need for a shift in the education structure to address this critical shortfall.
The transformation, he said, should aim at creating an educational system that would give students more time and resources to undertake practical work that would help put into use the various experiences acquired in the classroom.
By the time someone is from class 1, by the time they get into the university system, they've been sitting in classroom for 16 years. Doing what? Copying notes from textbooks, copying them back for exams, getting the results in the exams, and then you realize that it's all a certain type activity, the talking and the listening. So the time has come where the teacher training institutes have to begin to now understand that we cannot continue doing the same thing and expect a productive result. So the challenges are very are clear, that we cannot follow the colonial format where everyone has to be an academician. There are a lot of people who can be. And so we have to begin to look at that, how we can begin to restructure education in the country where everyone has a stake in it. Stake in it, just not to pass examinations, but where they can have something that is legitimate, something that is interesting, something that can be fulfilling, and something that can be economic for them.
He stressed if these measures are put in place, the country's education system will start to produce graduates with employable skills rather than the current system which contributes to the rising unemployment situation.
You see, everything does not have to be academics. And then if you look at, Ghana is so endowed with local content, natural materials, but we don't have any of these things incorporated into our education system. So what I'm saying is this: it's time for us to begin to move a bit away from the academics. There's nothing wrong with the academics for people who are that way inclined. But there's everything wrong with academics for those who are not that way inclined. These are the kinds of things that we really have to begin to look at.
He also called for a standardized form of examination across the country.
Stay on education, and a stakeholder forum aimed at working out modalities to convert polytechnics into technical universities is taking place here in Accra. The forum, which is under the theme Repositioning Technical Education as a Driver of Economic Transformation and National Development, will assemble top academicians and educationalists across the country to devise measures to ensure the conversion. This conversion of polytechnics into technical universities was one of the manifesto promises of the Mahama administration ahead of the 2012 elections. It is also aimed at creating more opportunities for students desirous of acquiring higher academic laurels and repositioning polytechnics as strategic institutions for the training of highly skilled human resource. Kwabena Chenchen Hineboachin he is on the forum still, and he's joined me over the telephone with more. Hello, Kwabena.
Kemini.
What can you tell us about the forum?
Well, as you rightly said, the forum is about the conversion of the various polytechnics, 10 of them in the country, into technical universities. Now, I've been speaking to the Education Minister, Jane Nana Opokwajman, who says the move is actually to reposition the various polytechnics in the country in order to improve efficiency. She goes on to say that the polytechnic graduates in the country currently are deviating from their core areas and in pursuit of courses or programs from other traditional areas because of the supposed tag that is associated with the university degree. Again, she's been mentioning quite a number of things in response to some questions I posed to her as to, for instance, part of the report that has been presented. I've been reading a bit of it, and it doesn't really explicitly say much about the change in curricula. So I asked whether or not it is a cosmetic thing, because there isn't much talk on the change in curricula here. And what she mentioned was that this is just a preliminary report that has been bought. Other reports are going to be bought after this particular program. Another thing that came up when I spoke to the president of the University Teachers Association of Ghana, in the person of Dr. Samobeko, who also happens to be here, is that if we are not careful, we might end up replicating the same thing the traditional universities are doing, particularly if if focus is not shifted onto the curricula. That was his main concern. Again, okay, I've just been joined by Jane. Okay, well, anyway, anyway. So as I was saying, his concern was that if we are not careful, we might just replicate what the traditional universities are doing, because unless, of course, we pump some money into the various polytechnics and equip them in order to do the practical aspect of what they're supposed to do, this thing will merely be a cosmetic thing. Again, I've been speaking to quite a number of people, as you're well aware, quite a number of educationists are here, members of academia, members of the industry. AGI president, I've spoken to him, who says he's actually hopeful that the convention will, in the long run, rake in the needed human resource for industry. Again, I've been speaking to Hani Zafa, who says he thinks, in fact, this thing is way overdue, it should have been done long ago, and he's hoping that once it's in now, emphasis will be placed in the right areas. But I've been joined right here by President of the Greater Accra Regional President of POTAG, in the person of Jones in Tiamwa. I just want to find out from him. So, Mr. Tiamwa, what does it?
Thank you very much. I think the teachers are very excited. We think that's the new era for us to excel. Currently, as we speak, we teach programs that are sometimes below our capabilities. So once we are migrated to technical university status, we'll be able to actually reach our full potential. Some of us can teach master's degrees and all that, but currently we teach diplomas and all that. And especially our students, we have so much concern for our students. What we teach them is practically same to the content of the university system. But when they finish and go out there to look for work, they are placed somehow below their counterparts in the university, which we think is not right. So we are very grateful to the president and the government and the technical committee for coming out with such a brilliant report.
The report presented to us today doesn't really speak much about the curriculum. I'm just beautiful worried by that. Any expressing sentiment, you know what, if they're just changing the name, going about because it's a campaign form, changing the name and all, and you're not really focusing on the crust of the particular issue. This is an executive utility. Do you agree with that?
Not really. The committee has recommended that this is done in phases. So curriculum will also be done as we go along. They are recommending that we start in September 2016. So I'm sure within this period, in collaboration with the German education sector, which we are collaborating with, they will help us with the curriculum that is practically focused and that is industry-driven, so that students, once they complete, will be the best on the field compared to their counterparts in the traditional universities.
Once this migration is done, does it in any way suggest that we now have technical university lecturers at the same level as university lecturers?
Possibly. We have met and we've talked about certain names to give, because once we become technical universities, we can no longer become polytechnic teachers. So that is something we are going to be talking about as we go forward. But as to whether we'll be equal to our technical universities, that will all depend on the bill that is being enacted. You see, currently they have recommended a bill that is going to before Parliament. So once that bill is enacted, whatever it says, that's what we also will become. So we cannot actually predict what we will become, but it's the bill. But once it's a university, then we are all university lecturers. And we hope that the capacity and the strength we have in our human resource base will be reflected in the drafting of the bill, so that it becomes useful for all of us.
So he's still in the second phase of the discussion. The forum has actually started, so I'll allow him to go, and I could just give you a bit more brief on what is currently happening. The report that has been presented by the Technical Committee on the conversion of the polytechnics in Ghana to technical universities actually has quite a number of things. Again, as Mr. Ntiamo mentioned earlier, it's supposed to take effect from September 2016. In fact, the polytechnic teachers are calling for it to be introduced sooner than that particular time. Now, the report here, before any university, any polytechnic is actually converted, we are told they'll be done in phases. It won't be a one-time thing that they will all be converted at the same time. It's going to be done in phases. So before any polytechnic is converted, is given that title a technical university, it must meet certain criteria. And content page 8 of the report actually talks about the criteria for conversion of a polytechnic to technical university, which, among other things, includes collaborating with industry, which suggests that any such polytechnic needs to have collaborated extensively with industry on a number of things. Again, it speaks of academic staff requirements. It means that with the lecturers currently available, other than they just being lecturers, they also need to have some sort of profession.
Does it propose when this should take off?
Pardon me?
Does it say when this should take off?
It says it should take off in September 2016. September 2016, like I mentioned earlier.
What are the general timelines to this? In September 2016, what should we expect? That all of the all of the polytechnics are converted to?
No, not so. What is currently being proposed is that by September 2016, any polytechnic that has met the requirements, they are not just going to be changed. They need to meet certain requirements, and those were some of the requirements are the things I was reading to you earlier. That, for instance, the polytechnic must have collaborated extensively with industry on a number of things. Again, it goes on to talk about academic staff requirements, the kind of people you need to have as lecturers in your institution. It also talks of the institutional standing of the polytechnic. You know, they are supposed to be running a number of courses. I'm told you should run about 4 technical courses or so. As things stand now, some polytechnics are running below that number, some 2, some 3, some 1. So unless, of course, you meet those requirements, you'll still be a polytechnic and not a technical university. So we just have to put that information out there.
Very well. We'll leave it here for now, and would get an update on this in subsequent broadcasts. We can now turn attention from education to health, where Western Regional Minister Paul Evans Adus confirmed they are unable to stop people coming from neighboring countries into Ghana through unapproved routes. Paul Evans Adus says Ivorian nationals who are farmers use footpaths to their farms here in Ghana. With this, it is difficult to get them screened and checked if they have the Ebola disease or not. The minister tells Seth Kwame Boateng the best they can do is to intensify education on the disease. Now, Seth has been traveling with the Deputy Health Minister and members of the Ebola Emergency Operations Team to some border towns in the Western region. Has joined me over the telephone with some updates. Hello, Seth. Well, I think we have lots Seth there, and so we'll put in efforts to raise him over the telephone, and you should stay on. We'll be back with that conversation. Don't go away. Thanks for staying on here. Now, trial of the senior medical officer from the Ifeanyi Regional Hospital, Dr. Sule Ali Gabas, took place today. The court on 1st December 2014 adjourned the case to today, as the prosecution had at the last sitting, rather, such that the victim was receiving medical attention at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. Kwachi Afranyama was in court today, and he's joined me over the telephone with some updates. Hello, Kwachi.
Good afternoon, Kamini.
Good afternoon to you. What happened today?
The case was again heard in camera, as the court says the victim's identity needs to be protected. It lasted for about an hour and a half. It's been adjourned to tomorrow. And as you may know, lawyers for Dr. Gabas had been unable to cross-examine the suspect at the last 2 sittings because state prosecutors said he wasn't feeling too well. But today, although he looked a bit frail, they were able to proceed with their cross-examination. And information I've gathered indicates that lawyers for the suspect, indeed, for the 3rd time today, asked the court to grant a bail to the Takrady Bay's lawyer. But presiding judge Rita Ajimambudu refused. So tomorrow cross-examination continues in earnest. But I can tell you, Kamini, that Dr. Gabas looked less of a worried man today compared to other occasions. I cited him. Indeed, after proceedings today, I spoke to some members of his family, and I had an interview with Dr. Gabas' brother, his elder brother, and he only gives his name as Alhaji Aziz, and he describes his brother's, what his brother is actually going through as sad. He says that it's a very difficult time for the family as well.
Very well, Kwache. And so when did you say that it's been adjourned to?
To tomorrow. You know, the court had earlier indicated, that was last year, during the second sitting, if I remember correctly, that they will be having a daily sitting. So even after tomorrow, they will be sitting daily on this particular matter.
Very well. Thank you very much for that update, Kwache. Chief Executive Officer of the Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana, Fred Moore, says government, while waiting for the IMF to approve a program to salvage the economy, can't begin implementing its risk assessment projections from the 2015 budget. Although he's confident Ghana will receive the support, he says Ghanaians will have to show more commitment in working hard to make the economy a strong one, with or without the IMF.
Plunged into economic difficulties, Ghana approached the IMF in August 2014 for support. The program, which was expected to take effect January 2015, is still pending. Meanwhile, analysts are expectant that a program from the Bretton Woods institution will save the economy. CEO of the Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana, ICAG, Fred Moore, although optimistic about the program, says government's risk assessment projections in the budget is an alternative.
The alternative is not worth bearing in mind. However, I also know that the finance minister and the ministry would have looked at the budget and risk assess any projections that they were making. And therefore, I'm hopeful that any risk assessment that they had done would have included the potential of the not getting the IMF loan, and therefore they can manage that in a. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy, because when you run an organization or a company and you risk assess, it means you are taking a risk, but it also means that there's a second option. Your second options are not normally as good as your first option. So let's hope that the first option will come right, which will mean the IMF supporting Ghana and helping Ghana through this difficult period.
For him, government must stay focused and embark on programs with a clear purpose.
I would have wanted to see less deliverables and actually achieving those deliverables to give confidence both to the economy and to the people in the country. For example, do we need more roads? And if we create the infrastructure for a developing economy, people would then come in and build the schools. Because I can't tell what the vision is. It's been every government for the last probably 20 years tend to have too many programs and projects that need to be delivered within 365 days. And therefore everything gets congested and gets backed up, and therefore things are not delivered on time. Look at our roads. We keep building hundreds of roads every year, but we don't build any one of them that well enough to last long enough.
Fred Moore also called on Ghanaians to support government in building the economy.
The limit to our growth, the limit to our success will be limited by the amount of love we give back to the country. Because that limits the tax cedi that the government can raise. That limits the quality of programs that we do, and therefore that would limit the infrastructure base that investment needs to thrive out of.
The IMF, however, says government is meanwhile taking steps to clean up the payroll and also seek external financial assurances from bilateral donors and international institutions before they can agree at the staff level before proposing it to the IMF Executive Board for consideration. Abigail Adamakwenchi for Joy News.
Sports Minister Mahama Yariga has directed the Ghana Football Association, GFA, to find alternative means of remunerating staff and committee members of the various national teams and not depend on the state. Now, prior to this directive, members of the various management committees were paid per diems from government coffers. Mahama Yariga, however, insists the practice must cease.
Position that the FA staff, as much as they play an important role in the management of the team, they should rely on themselves to remunerate themselves. And I think that the FA has great potential to make money.
Okay, so by that you mean getting sponsorships and doing their own...
Yeah,
okay.
Precisely. And not to rely on government support for the Black Stars. And so we did have some discussions at which we agreed with the FA. It wasn't, we agreed with them that there has to be changes in terms of how they get remunerated from government budgetary support for tournaments, and that they should look elsewhere for financial support for themselves and then for their activities.
29 players have been called up into the national under-20 team, the Black Satellites camp, to begin preparations for the 2015 Africa Youth Championship. The selected players are to report to the national camp in Pram, that's the Ghanaman Soccer Center of Excellence in Pram, tomorrow. The Black Satellites will play a two-legged international friendly against Ivory Coast later in February. Ghana has qualified for the AYC to be staged by Senegal from March 8th to 22, 2015. Now, here is a full squad. Goalkeepers, we have Mutawakilu Seidu, he plays for Hearts of Oak. Sai Michael, Brekum Chelsea. Odam Mustafa, he plays for Inter Allies. And then we have Kofi Mensah, he plays for Ebusua Dwarfs. And then Kwame Ba plays for Hearts of Lions. Defenders, we have Osu Bempa for Hearts of Oak. Christopher Boni, Kotoko. Emmanuel Asante, he plays for Kotoko. Patrick Asma, he plays for BA United. Joseph Ajay plays for WA All Stars. Joe Edu plays for Inter Allies. Latif Abubakar plays for Liberty Professionals. And then Stephen Anochibedu, he plays for BA United. Midfielders, we have Kofi Yeboah, WA All Stars. Yeboah, Right to Dream. At Suedu Atobra, Nue Dubiase. Osman Saki, Heart of Lions. Prosper Kasim, he plays for Inter Allies. Michael Otu plays for Unistars. Noah Mate plays for Bechim. Paul Asari plays for WA All Stars. Emmanuel Entry, Liberty Professionals. Isaac Nyaku plays for Great Olympics. And then Isaac Kwanzaa plays for Hearts of Lions. For strikers, we have Samuel Aful, he plays for Hazakes. Benjamin Tete, Dream FC. Samuel Tete plays for Wafa. Abbas Issa plays for Asokwa Deportivo. And then Henry Medarius plays for Lazio. So those are the players that have been called, 29 players that have been called to camp at the Ghanaman Soccer Center of Excellence for the Black Satellites ahead of the African Youth Championship coming up from the 8th to the 22nd of March this year. Now let's do something on the local league before I take leave of you. And David Duncan, Coach David Duncan, he has decided against signing a 2-year contract with Premier League returnees Accra Great Olympics. Now, the former Hearts of Oak chief has decided to discontinue his relationship with the club due to power struggles over there. Now, sources close to Duncan say that, contrary to earlier reports that he has issues with the club sport chairman Eric Ni Afote Odai, he didn't want to be used as a pawn in a power struggle between Afote and chief executive of Optimal Media Prime, OMP Fadi Fatal. OMP has purchased 40% shares in Great Olympics, and sources close to Duncan allege that Afote is not only against the new business arrangements, but he wants total control of the club. OMP and the club's board are expected to hold a meeting on Tuesday, that's later today, to discuss, amongst other things, preparations for the coming season. Right, so later on in our subsequent bulletins, we'll bring you updates from Spain, where the Black Stars have pitched camp ahead of the African Nations Cup 2015 coming up in Equatorial Guinea on January 17. We'll tell you about the friendlies that have been lined up and what they have been up to so far. But for now, it's a wrap on Sports on News Today. My name is Baba Tando. Have a good afternoon.
Well, our top stories here again. Ghanaian lady busted in the UK for allegedly smuggling 12.5 kilograms of cocaine. Nayeli Amatefe expected to reappear at the Isleworth Crown Court Tuesday. 2 U.S. citizens facing charges of their alleged role in last week's coup attempt in the West African nation, the Gambia, have been duly charged. Well, that's it for the year. Thank you very much for your company here. My name is Kemini Nyamanyamana. Good afternoon.